So thank you so much for coming to our session. My name is Yumiko Asayama, Chief Manager of Japan Water Forum and also Asia Pacific Water Forum Secretariat. This session is organized as one of Asia Pacific focus session under the collaboration with Shiwi to coordinate Asia Pacific focus session, collaborating with our partner organization. And this session's co-convener is UMI, UN Habitat, and ADB. And this session will address fostering resilience to bridge the gap in Asia Pacific multi-hazard warning system. As you know, developing and disseminating locally led, inclusive, and sustainable governance. Sustainability governed multi-hazard warning system is very, very crucial for minimizing loss and damage in Asia Pacific and translating barrier and ensure human and ecosystem security. And these are very, very especially vital for cross-border water cooperation and when well designed and executed to contribute to peace and security. But success hinges on cultural sensitivity, political buy-in, and rigorous evaluation. Therefore, this session will address the critical gap in knowledge, monitoring, preparedness, and communication related to disaster risk in Asia-Pacific region, which heightens the vulnerability of community to flood and drought. Notably, challenge in communication and response capacity often surpass those related to forecasting accuracy and availability of scientific technology. So in this session, first part of this session will the speaker will present strategy and innovative approach and measure for bridging these gaps, and focusing on the implementing the early warning systems for all initiatives. Through leading case studies, we will explore the practical solution and consider what it takes to adapt these advanced methods to diverse community in Asia Pacific. In the second part, we will move on to the panel discussion. And the panel discussion will dive into all these case studies and examine the necessity measure on the ground from multiple perspectives, from science and technology, policy and institutional design, capacity building, and stakeholder collaboration, and finance to scaling up to filling these gaps. Moreover, we also try to discuss the pivotal role of water sector in developing a cross-sectoral framework to integrate and disseminate comprehensive and resilient early warning system. And now I would like to invite Mr. Ben Churchill from WMO, Regional Office for Asia and Pacific, Southwest Pacific. He is joining our session via Singapore online. So now I would like to invite Ben to introduce your activity. And this his presentation is a keynote presentation of this session. So Ben, floor is for yours. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Yumiko, and hello to everyone in Stockholm. Warm greetings from Singapore, and also to those participants joining online. I'm just wondering if the organisers could show my slides, please. Thank you very much. Well, thank you again, and greetings from the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, Professor Celeste Saulo, who's currently in Tonga, accompanying the United Nations Secretary General as a part of the Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting. My name, as Yumiko said, is Ben Churchill, and I'm the Director of the WMO Regional Office for Asia and Southwest Pacific, based in Singapore. I would like to thank many for this opportunity to present at the Stockholm World Water Week 2024, particularly on this Asia-Pacific focus session where we're talking about bridging gaps in multi-hazard early warning systems. Thank you specifically to the Asia-Pacific Water Forum, International Water Management Institute, UN Habitat, and Asia Development Bank as co-presenters in this session. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. And this is a very compelling graphic, and I'll just let it run through its cycle as I run through some key points. As we all know, the world continues to warm at an alarming rate. The last 13 months have been the hottest on record, and the most recent State of Global Climate report released on the 23rd of March this year confirmed that 2023 last year was the hottest year on record by a clear margin. And on 22nd of July this year, the hottest down record was broken when the average global daily temperature peaked to 17.15 degrees Celsius. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense. Disasters are set to increase by 40% before 2030, and extreme temperature events will triple. Countless lives and livelihoods are at risk, even though early warnings have been leading to fewer lives lost per year over the last 50 years, and I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment. But the disaster costs continue to rise, and they're costing billions, if not trillions of dollars in economic losses every year. So international collaboration is essential in the face of such a global, complex, and existential threat. Records broken for ocean heat, sea level rise, Antarctic sea ice loss, and glacier retreat also continue. And extreme weather undermines socioeconomic development, and the cost of climate inaction is higher than the cost of climate action. If I can have the next slide, please. So I might take this opportunity here to connect to something that's closer to your hearts in terms of hydrology and the cryosphere. So with the world's warming climate and soaring temperatures, the cryosphere is impacted. And this also has an impact on the atmosphere and also our oceans. So we're seeing melting glaciers, shrinking ice sheets, and these are contributing more moisture to the atmosphere, which leads to more intense rainfall and floods, and also extreme droughts in areas where it's not raining due to the evaporation. And also sea level rise as a result of all these factors is putting small islands and our coastal communities at greater risk. Thank you. Next slide. So only half of the world's countries report having sufficient capacity to alert their citizens about impending hazards and extreme weather conditions. The good news is that early warnings cover 65% of the world's population. However, these are mainly in OECD countries. The not so good news is that in the least developed countries, coverage is less than 50%, and in small island developing states, coverage is even lower at about 40%. There is so much work still to be done to close the early warnings gap. Next slide, please. And this is why we have the Early Warnings for All initiative, which seeks to ensure that all people on the planet are covered by people-centred, inclusive, multi-hazard early warning systems by the end of 2027. Yes, it is an ambitious target, but it is something that we must strive for together. The areas of focus for this initiative in this year and beyond are about accelerating our implementation by providing coordinated support and technical assistance to bridge gaps, including through strategic partnerships and incorporation of new technologies to enable innovative solutions. We want to expand the outreach. We want to move beyond the initial 30 countries that were identified by the United Nations Secretary General a few years ago. And we want to make sure that these countries can meet demand and needs of their vulnerable communities. And finally, we need to fund this initiative. We need to unlock funding for sustainable early warning systems by strategically accessing and leveraging funding to ensure sustained action and achievement of the Early Warnings for All goals. Thank you. Next slide. And I won't spend too much on this, but just from a WMO perspective, our focus, for those who know the initiative, has four pillars, and led by partners, United Nations Office Disaster Risk Reduction, the WMO, the International Telecommunications Union, and also the International Federation for Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. And it's not just these four partners, it is an all-in effort. Everybody on the planet has an interest in this success of this initiative, and we are really working through our partnerships to make sure this initiative is delivered. But just to put it in a bit of context from a WO perspective, our job is to collect observations on the climate and on weather, and to make sense of this data through assimilation and numerical weather prediction, and then produce forecasts and warnings. This is what our 193 members do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But there are gaps that we need to fill in terms particularly of observations and also in data sharing across the vast gaps that we have across the world. And there I'm particularly talking about in Africa, in the Caribbean, and also in the Pacific Ocean. So if I can have the next slide. So just thinking now about the WMO and the role of its national meteorological and hydrological services, which are our members. So it is essential in this context, as we look at the climate, weather and water value cycle on the screen, to have more high quality data available for monitoring and detecting hazardous events, because this data forms the foundation of services for weather, climate and water and related environmental services. So we also need to ensure that this data is easily shared and is accessible to all those that need it. And this is something that the WMO is focusing on through its unified data policy. And we're also focused on utilising predictive tools for significant weather-associated hazards. And we do this by improving data and advancing our computational power across our network, and also deepening insights into weather dynamics to improve the weather forecasting precision, which is critical for early warnings. And now, if I could move to the next slide, I'd like to focus on what we as WMO are doing in the Asia Pacific in this context. For those who don't know, WMO is made up of 2 technical commissions, one for infrastructure, one for services, and a research board. But we also have 6 regional associations, and the 2 that I focus on are in Asia and the Pacific. Now, the regional associations are made up of members, and we have 59 members in the Asia Pacific region. And thanks to national leadership and pillar partner support, we have paid particular attention to the 6 countries in Asia and the 5 in the Pacific who were listed in the first 30 of the Early Warnings for All initiative as focus countries. But it is not just about early warnings for all, it's also about all the enabling work and the surrounding work that supports this initiative. And it relies very heavily on the active participation of a diverse range of stakeholders, so we get all perspectives. Not just the United Nations and IFRC, but also non-government organisations, civil society, academia, and the private sector. And these entities each bring a unique expertise, resources, and perspectives to the table. And we need to coordinate. We need to pool our resources to avoid duplication and to maximise the impact. So we take very much a focused partnership approach in the Asia Pacific in this Early Warnings for All context. If I can have the next slide, please. And I mentioned the World Global Climate Report earlier. 4 years ago from today, WMO and its partners launched the regional State of the Climate Reports, and the Asia Report, the 4th edition of this, was launched in Bangkok in April. And we also have in this region a report for the Southwest Pacific, which is actually being launched by the UN Secretary-General and the WMO Secretary-General in Tonga tomorrow. And this report is published annually. And if I can have the next slide, it just demonstrates in very graphical terms, as well as with examples and other images, the impacts of climate and extreme weather over a given year. So in 2023, the Asia region experienced a total of 79 disasters associated with hydrometeorological hazard events. And 80% of these, and you can see this in the teal and blue colours in the pie charts, 80% were related to floods and storms in 2023. This resulted in over 2,000 fatalities, of which 60% were associated with flooding and 15% with storms. And overall, 9 million people and possibly more were directly affected by these events. So it's very clear from this information that storms affected the largest number of people and caused the most economic damage during 2023. And floods were the clear leading cause of death in reported events by a substantial margin. So I want to look at the next slide now and just tell you a little bit about what's happening in 2024 so far. So far, earlier this year, we saw in China some deadly storms and floods in April, which damaged major infrastructure. And we've seen time after time, month after month, China is really being impacted, and more recently by Typhoon Gami in July, which also impacted the Philippines. In Oman, UAE, yes, in the Middle East, unprecedented rainfall in April resulted in deaths and major disruption to both air and land transport. Moving to Central Asia, Russia, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan all experienced severe flooding and mudslides in March and May, and this was caused again by heavy rain and also made worse by rapid snowmelt. In South Asia and Southeast Asia, close to where I'm located, we've seen extensive heat waves, which started in April and continue even now, well beyond their normal expected endpoints. And we're just starting to transition into monsoon, and monsoon season is heavier than usual. And in Bangladesh and India, tropical cyclone Ramal caused heavy rain, flash flooding, and fatalities. So if I can move to the next slide, and this story just continues, and this, is updated week to week. The next slide is just something, a key message and an image, to make the point very clear that a warning that is issued 24 hours in advance of it making an impact will, by all accounts, reduce the disaster impact by 30%. And this saves billions of dollars, and it also saves lives. And so I'm just going to move now to an example, if I can have the next slide, which was the example of Cyclone Mocha, which impacted through the Bay of Bengal, Myanmar, and neighbouring countries. And what I wanted to point out here was a very clear example of how far we've come in 50 years. This is a slide, I guess, of hope for the future. So 50 years ago, there was a similar intensity cyclone, Bola, which impacted 1970. And due to the lack of awareness, the lack of early warnings, no satellite images were available to generate forecasts and early warnings. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. Whereas just as recently as last year, Cyclone Mocha impacted, there was at least a week warning. The information was passed to humanitarian agencies. They were able to deliver aid in advance of impact to those affected. And the reported loss of lives is in the hundreds, not hundreds of thousands, just hundreds. Now, of course, it is very sad that anyone loses their life, but to see such a significant reduction in 50 years really paints a very clear picture of the effect of early warnings and Early Warnings for All initiative. And if I can have the next slide, please. And these are just a few other initiatives that I think we've gone one too far. I'll just go back one. Thank you. Just wanted to finish off a few slides here, but this one really points out that there is a number of activities happening in the region and also globally. Many relate to hydrology. We have Hydro SOS, which is the Hydro Status and Outlook System, for those that are not aware. Many of you would be aware of the FFGS, or the Flash Flood Guidance System, which has been rolled out in many, many parts of the world, including Asia and the Pacific, and also the associated program for flood management. And together with this, we have initiatives on climate, on weather, the Severe Weather Forecasting Program, Tropical Cyclone Program, and also, as far as coasts are concerned, the Coastal Inundation Forecasting Initiative. And with all these initiatives combined with the Early Warnings for All and enabled by many funding mechanisms, which are shown there on the right just as an example, we're really making some headway into building capability and also building resilience in the most vulnerable communities. And just last one or two slides as I finish, I wanted to finish off with a clear message, which is that early warnings for all do work. They really do work. As I illustrated with that example, there are many more. Just more recently, Typhoon Beryl, as it cut a swathe through the Caribbean. Yes, it had some significant impacts on infrastructure, but have a look at the loss of life. It was actually much lower than in previous occasions. So early warnings do work, but we do need your support and everyone's support so that they can work for everyone. And my last slide is how early warnings for all contributes to all of the Sustainable Development Goals. Many think it might just contribute to Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate action. Well, of course, it does contribute significantly. But if you think of the value and impact provided by the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services in providing early warnings for all and contributing to early forecasts and warnings, they do contribute to many sectors that cut across all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So on that note, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words today. Sorry for the organisers if I ran a little bit over time, but I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very, very honoured to join you today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Yumiko.
Thank you, Mr. Ben Churchill, to introduce very, very informative introduction about the progress of early warning for all in Asia and the Pacific. And you please join panel discussion followed by speakers' presentation here. So from now, we would like to move on to the presentation from speaker, and they will introduce how their organization try to fill in the gap to enhance the progress of early warning for all in Asia Pacific. First presenter is Dr. Abhisar Khan, Regional Advisor of Southeast Asia and Head of Office in Laos, UN Habitat.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Yumiko-san. So I have a very short presentation to share with you because I have two colleagues joining in from Laos online. One is the Deputy Director General Viangsai Manivong, Deputy Director General of DMH, and also Shairi Mathur, who is the Head of Resident Coordinator's Office. So they will provide a much broader perspective, while I would essentially try to share some of our experience from a UN Habitat perspective, where we have been working in this particular area for some time. So basically, our effort has been to integrate community voices along with data-driven approach for resilient communities. Thanks, it's working. So as you will note that Lao PDR is sort of facing quite serious challenges. Particularly in 2018, there was a loss of about $360 million economic loss, which is very significant for a country of a size of Lao PDR. And also projected forecasts say that they will continue to lose to the tune of 3.6% of the GDP annually due to floods alone. Then there are also other data which gives quite a serious picture. For example, there has been in the last 12 years, 39 major incidents related to climate disasters. The hottest day in Lao PDR was recorded last summer. And studies show that there is an increase of 0.05 degrees Celsius of temperature every year. So that tantamounts to 4 degrees Celsius rise by the end of 21st century. It also shows different climate scenarios that the northern and central part of Lao PDR will experience lesser precipitation, while the southern part of Lao PDR will experience a higher precipitation, and also there is a change in the onset of the wet season. So all these things paint quite a serious sort of a situation for Lao PDR, and therefore it is very important to develop a scientifically sound, people-centered early warning system. So some of the work that UN Habitat has embarked with the Partnership of Adaptation Fund is to map the hazards in the country. So there was not a detailed map before we engaged in that collaboration with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. And the interesting thing about this study is that it was not a sampling exercise per se, but we covered all the 18 provinces, 148 districts, 8,499 villages. So data were gathered from each of these settlements and villages. And based on that, we plotted the hazard map around floods, droughts, landslides, storms. And what was also very interesting in this exercise that we organized a number of community consultations in the country, engaging women, youth, different ethnicities to corroborate some of our own findings. And what was interesting to find, and also scary, is that on average, about 46% of the settlements in Lao PDR are exposed to at least one or more climate hazards every year. And that corresponds to about more than half of the country's population. So, of course, this then brings us to this important element of early warning system, how we can minimize the damages and losses as much as possible. And what we have observed, there are two critical gaps. One is in no common alert protocol. And in certain cases where there is a mechanism to send information to the communities, what we have observed that there is no feedback mechanism from the community. So for that, we are currently developing an EWS app. And in the centrality of the app is the community involvement and participation. So not only communities are fed with information, but community can also feed information. The other element is, of course, UN habitat interventions in twofold. One is through building infrastructure. For example, building evacuation centers, building water sanitation infrastructure, that is from the infrastructure point of view. And the other is through the capacity building programs that we have initiated in Laos. And the capacity building program around early warning, about early warning systems involves communities. It also involves policymakers and government officials at the national and the subnational level. And the whole aim is how we can ensure the safety of the vulnerable groups. And also, one of the critical focus will be how to develop the basic level of digital literacy in the community so that they can also effectively participate in the early warning system through the EWS app which we are developing. So it is too early to talk about impact because the work is currently ongoing. But of course, we see that through our endeavor, you help to build the community trust and engagement because they also see they are a part of this process and not just a passive recipient. We also see that this also helps to bring forth the local concerns. There is also the effort through which we are observing that skill building and knowledge in the communities are being developed. And finally, of course, there is a trust in technology that grows at the grassroots level when they actually see things are working. So that brings to my final slide of how do we see how to continue. Currently, our project is focused in 5 provinces in 6 districts. So this is a pilot phase. And we, of course, want to scale it up, looking at the positive impact. And to do that, what we understand, as our first keynote presenter said, is very much that we should have good, improved coordination among stakeholders. A recent mapping exercise showed that there are 20 agencies working in this space in the country. Therefore, it is very important that we talk to one another. We share our tools, methodologies, so that the scarce resources that are available are best utilized. So you will find a lot of information of what is happening in this different websites. Please feel free to visit. And we will also be available to take your questions and share further information. And as I mentioned, I have 2 colleagues from Laos who can provide, one from the government, one from the UN coordination system, who can provide a broader perspective. Thank you.
So thank you so much for being introduced in the UN Habitat Law Office activity to enhance access to early warning for all systems in Laos and supporting and deepening trust from community in Laos. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Gilaji Amarnath, Principal Researcher, Disaster Risk Management and Climate Resilience of UMI. Thank you.
Stand from here or? Okay. I hope my slides will come. Yeah. So prior, I just begin to say, so I think the previous two speakers have excellently reiterated, and I would be also saying a similar context, so you should not feel really boring of sitting here. So it's about saving lives, exposure, and also reducing the infrastructure. We are all providing a context which is very similar, but the way in which we set the narrative and the kind of application through this global initiative on early warning might vary. But I think by the end of 2027, where the global ambition of early warning, we all might converge into more a common platform with which the early warning initiative will drive in the coming years. So I would like to highlight some examples of how we have been working in International Water Management Institute. We have been given 5 minutes, so let me just go very quick. So this is a slide from UNDRR that also clearly shows, while WMO and UN Habitat have shown national level experience or regional level, this is a global picture of early warning for all. I think a lot more work needs to be done. And if you look at this again, there is a significant growth in terms of countries reporting early warning system, which is again a welcoming part in terms of how early warning can save life. But there is still a challenges when it comes to multi-hazard early warning systems. So we have cascaded risk of cyclone, flood, flash flood, and all those cascaded risks also need to be quantified. There are not ready enough tools are set or in the motion, so that we need to work more going forward on that. So what I just want to bring some of these observations directly here instead of going too much. I just want to, like a lot of people have already spoken about data coverage, infrastructure, communicating the early warning information. All these are very critical. And there is one important area that is we are struggling a bit is the governance and coordination. I think this is time and again in our stakeholder assessment, institutional analysis across the humanitarian organization, the governance is the biggest bottleneck. And so how do we provide disaster risk governance more strategically? That's where the focus of my presentation would come into that. So this is one video. I'm not sure whether they can show this with a sound bite. It's a 1.5 minute video, more than I present. So just take a look of this work, what we are doing in Sri Lanka. If the sound allows. Okay, but still it is visualized. Maybe we can skip to the next slide, so that in the interest of time, I would have given early warning for the organizer to make sure the soundbite would work, right? So that's how the early warning is a challenge for everybody. So I just want to come here specifically on this AWARE platform, which is basically bringing a coordination of institutions to work together in a single stack, while technical institutions, whether it is hydromet agencies, provide credible information on the ground truthing information, but it also provides space-based forecast agencies from various agencies like NOAA, ECMWF. And what we are trying to do is the interconnectedness between the technical institution and the coordinating institution working in the provincial level or at a district or at a village level. That is early action protocol, which is designed specifically at a village level. And then we have there are 14 sectors which the governments would like to prioritize in a region, whether it is wash sector, whether it is on nutrition, what I need to do right after the flood or before the flood. So there is a contingent funds provision system is also available there. And each of the household would tell what are the priorities before or during the drought. So this entire assessment is made available in a platform. It also comes with rapid response, risk related to food prices, health diseases. So we have models for malaria and dengue is also built within the system itself. So please take a look and then we can speak it over further on that. So I just want to give an example. If one such infrastructure is made available, then how do you mainstream this work? That's where we conduct a lot of simulations in the ground and making sure that the participatory governance process is taken care more inclusively and collectively. And the other step is that a lot of these drills are mostly available for them in a form of book. But when you conduct more drill, they are better prepared, how they are response to future shocks like floods and drought or landslides in Sri Lanka. I just want to highlight one of the early action protocol that communities have written in this particular is restoring the canals. This particular canal, what you see on the left side, I don't know the pointer works here. I don't think it's there. So on the left side, what you see is the canal, which is not restored for the last 25 years. Now, whenever there is a 50 millimeter or 100 millimeter flood water happens, they all get overflows, and then it gets damaged, the entire houses living in that location. So when you restore that, what we have restored is a 20 feet river now, and last 2 years, none of the communities have faced any flood problems. So while early warning is provided, they can go and put evacuated. When they come back, they see the houses are completely destroyed. So if you restore these kind of a simple local action efforts, what we call is a locally led adaptation efforts, then you see that the early warning along with the management measure and the local action would work win-win solutions for that. Otherwise, just disseminating only early warning would not solve the entire problem. We need to make sure the local infrastructure takes care of that. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Kiriraji, for introducing your activity conducted in Sri Lanka through our program and so on. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Takahiro Konami, Director, International Affairs Office, Water and Disaster Management Bureau of Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Japan.
Thank you, Miko. Good introduction for me. Good morning. I'm Takahiro from the government of Japan. So slide coming here, coming there. Okay. So I'd like to introduce our efforts which was done in Japan and Japanese contribution to the international world again as well. So next slide, please. Next is the title. Is this working? Okay, working. So for the early warning, there's a lot of gaps. And I'd like to highlight that early warning requires facility, structures, investment to the facilities, not only for the non-structural measures. So Japan has introduced weather radars, rainfall radars for the conventional ones, so 26, and the latest one, X-band radars, 39 units. It costs, you can imagine, it costs millions of dollars to develop. And also, obviously, we need ground truth data. If we use satellite data or radar data, we need a huge amount of the observatory on the ground. So for the water level, we have introduced in total 14,000 water gauge in over Japan. So I think it's a not the average one. So, but this is what we Japan has invested in the facility structure to improve, achieve the early warning for the flood. So, and also there is a technical capacity to make arrangement of the raw data to the easily understood way to the citizens. This is one example of a flood frequency map for some region. It's very easy to understand, but I hope you can understand it's very difficult to make such kind of map with enough sufficient accuracy based on the accumulation of the data. So, and also there is a lot of gaps in awareness of the citizens. So Japan has been transmitted the early warnings to the citizens in a various way, as in the many countries. So through TVs, internet, radio, and also the smartphone alert systems and so on. But even the efforts of such kind of transmission of the early warning, still many citizens tend to ignore the early warning. So to solve it, Japan has introducing one initiative I have named it in English to call laborers to evacuate campaign. So this is very important. So everyone ignores the opinion from the people who doesn't know. Better, everyone should obey to their it depends, but it's an important person, parents or wives or husbands or children. So then this campaign is to enhance citizens to call to evacuate to their families or relatives. Such kind of the comprehensive method from structural investment and kind of the emotional efforts to mind and fill the gap has been done in Japan. And also we are making an international cooperation. So this is one example of the International Flood Initiative. This is an initiative under the UNESCO IHP, International Hydrological Program, which was led by the ICHAM, International Center for Water-Related Risk, and in cooperation with the international organization. So this is a comprehensive approach to make an early warning and resilient structure of the community. So this is an example of the community, the activities in the Davao of the Philippines to using the comprehensive approach for using a database and also interface and the community. So and we Japan is making such kind of similar approach in the various areas of the Asia Pacific and enhance, disseminate the idea of how to save lives, save economic damages through both early warning and also the infrastructure development. And also we are making an international initiative through the Water Conference in the United Nations 2023. So, and we make a kind of the guideline to how to treat the risk in the context of the climate change. So, and also physically, and we are making an international cooperation project with several countries to make a flood risk map that as I have introduced above. So, and also we are making a place for discussion of the international standards related to such kind of the hydrological risks. So this is very brief introduction of what Japan is done and what Japan is doing. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for Minami-san, thank you so much for introducing Japan case and also introducing workflow Japanese government and Egyptian government introduced in United Conference, UN Water Conference in 2023. It is very, very important how to do in accordance with workflow using reflecting the case study from various in cases in Asia Pacific. And our last speaker is Mr. Lance Goa. He is Principal Water Resource Specialist of the Asian Development Bank. Now, Lance, floor is for yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lance Gore. I'm from the Asian Development Bank, and I'm here to discuss ADB's response to the urgent issue of glacial melt, and which is very relevant also for early warning systems and early warning on the crisis that glacial melt will have on its downstream river basins. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues, Declan McGee and Ivani Dixit, who can't be here today, for their contributions to this work. And this is supported by our partners at ICIMOD, Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, and many others. Glacial melt, encompassing all forms of ice melt, is a critical challenge impacting millions across Asia. Addressing this is a key priority for the ADB, as emphasized by our president during the Bandung Spirit Water Summit in Bali at the World Water Forum earlier this year. According to ICIMOD projections, we will reach peak water around 2050. Before then, we face excess water, increasing the risk of floods, glacial lake outburst floods, and landslides. After 2050, however, water scarcity will become a significant issue, leading to droughts and water shortages. This shift from too much to too little water demands our urgent action. These challenges will have a differentiated impacts to the various sectors, from agriculture and energy to urban development. Water scarcity and increased hazards will disrupt food production, energy, infrastructure, and will affect millions of lives. If we look at agriculture, land will be impacted by floods, riverbank erosions, the droughts, landslides. After 2050, a large part of Asia grain bowls, food production bowls down in the plains will be impacted by severe water shortages. A lot of these river basins rely on these crop production growing areas rely on the water from the ice to feed the irrigation systems and for their crop production. At the moment, they balance that out by withdrawing groundwater, but this is also becoming over-extracted. So in the long term, we're going to be facing this issue of less ice melt and groundwater depletion. Some river basins, such as the Indus, rely 80% of the ice melt water for their food production systems. Some are a lot less, but it's going to be quite critical for all of us. In urban areas, reduction of water supply is going to reduce the reliability of the supply. It will also affect the water quality, and if they're returning their treated wastewater to the rivers, it will also affect the absorption capacity of those rivers. In hydropower, we're going to be looking at more sedimentation flowing into those reservoirs, and then lack of water in the future, reducing the generation potential. We are already seeing the effects from this glacial melt, with increased floods and landslides causing significant damage and threatening communities. These events highlight the need for immediate action. And these images are quite recent. ADB, was supporting the government of Nepal with the Melimchi water supply system, which is the main water supply into Kathmandu Valley. Just shortly after the opening of the tunnel system, a large gulf, a multi-cascading event happened within the Melimchi watershed, causing the intake to be completely submerged and damaged by this event. We witnessed severe floods in Pakistan back in 2022, huge impacts on its communities, its people, its economy, its food production systems. So we're experiencing the impacts now, and hence we need to start thinking about what we're going to do about it now. Only 10 days ago, a major gulf happened in Nepal, up in the Everest region, causing severe damage and loss of life. These events are becoming more and more frequent, and they underscore the dangers of the ice melt and the urgent need for effective mitigation and adaptation strategies. So, ADB is really gearing up, mobilizing our resources to help our developing member countries to respond to this issue. Of course, early warning systems play a key part of this. There are 4 main areas which we're focusing on: strengthening multi-hazard risk assessments, enhancing cross-border early warning systems, innovative financing for climate resilience, and deepening regional cooperation and knowledge sharing. These strategies we are actively pursuing with our partners. We are also developing new multi-regional programs to address the long-term impacts of water insecurity on the downstream river basins, on hydropower assets, and where food production systems will be severely impacted, particularly in the river basins where groundwater is also suffering from overexploitation. These downstream areas are homes to about 2 billion people. They produce about 1/3 of the world's food grains, and are home to a significant portion of the world's manufacturing industries. We look forward to sharing more about these initiatives with you in the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Lance for introducing the ADB's works on early warning for all, particularly focus on the Himalayas case. And the Himalayas case will be further discussed through Wednesday 9 a.m. Session. And from now, we would like to move on to the panel discussion. And in panel discussion, on-site moderator, Dr. Thanapong Piman, Senior Research Fellow, Stockholm Environment Institute, Asia, kindly take the leadership for moderating all, including online speakers. And in panel discussion, we have 4 online speakers, online panelists, and we will also ask one question: what is happening and doing on the ground to fill in the gap for the society, particularly for vulnerable community in Asia Pacific. Now, Thanapong, floor is for yours.
To be here, and also thank you very much, Yumiko, for this kind of opportunity for me to moderate this section. I think, as you can hear from Yumiko, we have 7 panels, 4 online and 3 on-site. First of all, let me introduce and welcome them to the floor, and also show them on the screen for the online panel. Maybe first, I would like to introduce Mr. Vieng Chai Moniwong, Deputy Director General, Department of Meteorology and Hydrology from Lao PDRs. Can you show him on the screen? Yes, good. Second, we also have Ms. Charis, Head of Office UN Resident Coordination Office in Lao PDR as well. So we're going to have a good kind of example from Asia Pacific country, and I know that Laos and Thailand now are facing flood situation very severely at the moment in the northern part of the Mekong. This is going to be a good topic to learn as well. And also we do have Ben from WMO. I'm not sure that Mr. Planto Poo, is he there? From World Youth Parliament for Water. Okay. So at least you can see now the 4 online panels. And again, I would like to invite 3 on-site panel. First, Dr. Arok Seka, the Deputy Director General at the Indian Council Agriculture Research, ICAR, from India. Please come on the stage. Yeah, we can see you here. And second one again, Mr. Takahiro from Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism. Please come here. Yeah. And the last one, Land. I saw him stand a lot yesterday already, so you should have very good exercise here. Okay, please. So, yeah, maybe first of all, I would like to throw the question to Dr. Alok, about from your experience in South Asia, could you please explain the benefit of using drought monitoring data and early warning system among policymakers and local farmers in enhancing agriculture resilience, please?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So first of all, let me make a small correction. I'm Alok Sikka, but I'm not the Deputy Director General. I used to be the Deputy Director General, now 9 years back. Now I'm with International Water
IMI.
Management
Yeah.
Institute,
Okay.
as a country representative India and Bangladesh.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And thank you very much for having me over here. Now, I know that it was really an interesting discussion going on, and of course you were talking about all the water towers coming from down to, and my focus, and we also know that the importance of early warning. I don't have to really go back onto that, because how much this early warning can reduce the impact of all the colossal damages, losses, miseries, loss of human lives and everything when the timely information is given for the timely action. So the timely and the early action. Now my focus is on drought, as you mentioned. In South Asia, we have developed, as my colleague Giriraj Amarnath was there, South Asia drought monitoring system. And it has got various components, including early warning, monitoring, and drought management, which is more on the drought contingency planning. Because it's just not the early warning alone, so we have kind of built up entire thing together as a package. And so we have been using that together with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and we have a different lead time, because when we are talking about the drought management and early warning and drought, it is the lead time is most important, be it drought, be it flood. Of course, in the flood, lead time will be much shorter than what you will expect to be in the drought. And so in case of drought, like even 10 days to 12 days or 15 days at the max, like we try about the lead time. So based on the multiple data platforms, multiple data sources, we try and come up with the early warning and then connect it with our other hydrological systems and come up with the drought monitoring. And then linking that with the early and the timely action in terms of drought contingency planning. So that is how we have been working on. And along with our partners, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, their institute called CRIDA, Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, we have been also looking into how at the local scale, like you said, talked about the local adaptation. So at a local scale, in the village level, how when we are transmitting these kind of things, they are really going to be converted into an action. And so that is how we have been using the good officers of CRIDA, ICAR, to try and see what are the drought contingency measures and the early actions are to be taken on the ground, and they are being implemented. So the early warning system which we have used and then linked it with the early action and also validated it through the good officers of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So that is how it's a kind of interconnected thing, that how early warning then leads to early action and the more timely, so that the colossal damages are not there. And so it is not that we always talk about the long-term planning in the drought or floods, but at the same time, no matter how much early warning system you have, there's always an element of risk. And to meet and take care of that element of risk, you have to have some kind of a contingency. And that, so I think, I do not know how much time I have. I'm done with my time. So I'll stop over here.
Okay, thank
because
you.
I have my own experience also working with not only drought, but also the landslide and the floods, but I would restrict to drought because that is what I've been asked.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much to share your valuable experience and very comprehensive, kind of thinking and planning about the early warning system. Early warning is just a first jigsaw, but to have what's that you call the early actions, it's still long way to move, from the observation to assessment to communication and to action,
And one more thing I would just like, just half a minute,
Yeah.
that we kind of use this platform of SADMS, South Asia Early Morning. And we have been in discussion with the government of Zambia, and now we have developed the ZADMS, which is Zambia Drought Monitoring System. And last month we were there, and now we are working on all these things. Which
Very good, very good.
So it's a good example of South-South cooperation.
And also the scale up of the project. Thank you very much. So, okay, let me next jump to Laos. From the experience, from India, now let's listen practical experience in Laos. Mr. Vieng Chai, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, good. สบายดีครับ so Mr. Vieng Chai, what are the primary strengths and critical gaps in the current multi-hazard early warning system in Laos PDR? And how is the Department of Meteorology and Hydrology addressing this gap?
Okay, thank you very much for your very important question for Lao PDR. I am on behalf of the Lao PDR or on behalf of the DMS, Department of Meteorology and Hydrology. This department under Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. We have the mandate, we have the function, we have the role. Actually, my departments play the very important role in weather forecasting, hydrological forecasting, data collection, early warning dissemination. That's very important to reduce the impact from the disaster. What we strengthen, many areas that we strengthen until now. For example, the policy support. Yes, my department support the law on disaster management, the National Strategy on Disaster Risk Reductions 22-2030, Disaster Management Law 2019, and Early Warning Standard Operation Procedure 2017 provide strong policy support. This framework emphasizes improving early warning system for disaster risk reduction and establishing legal provision for timely and accurate dissemination of warning. Yeah. In the area of international collaborations, we have partnership, especially UN. UN many agencies, for example, UN FAO, UN Habitat, UNDR, my roadmap company, my roadmap partnership. Yes, I will talk about later. And we have UN Habitat. Yes, Mr. Avi already talking about the Lao and how to strengthen early warning system. And I also have project with him. Now we have the project with him that's under implementing, and this project will support the early warning station or monitoring station in the 6 province. And we also have the World Bank, ADB, and we have CMA, GMA, KMA, and we have finally we have WMO. My WMO is the how to say the partner of meteorology and hydrology. That's my international collaboration. And we also have strengthening the community-based early warning system. And we have the local early warning system like a speaker. Louder speaker is very important for the village. Every morning, every afternoon, every evening, we have the radio. Department of Meteorology and Hydrology broadcast the news Yeah, about the weather forecasting and early warning through the loudspeaker, through the radio, through the TV. Now we have modern social media like WhatsApp, Facebook, yeah, Live, and so on. And we have also special the application for agriculture. For example, Laksa. Laksa is well known in the agriculture sector. We developed by our SAMIS project, the first phase project that my international partnership is UN FAO. We also have the technical enhancement. Significant upgrades have been made observation network and forecasting system over the past decades, improving the reliability of weather forecast and early warning. Also having some positive strengthen, we have some areas that need to be improved the coming day. We have strengthened and we have the weakness. Yeah, the gaps to be filled is really important and really needed for the Lao PDR. For example, we have insufficient observation system and poor maintenance in the accurate data collection and monitoring, remote sensing data supplement and observational infrastructure, but it's not fully sufficient. The National Meteorological and Hydrological Service suffer from lack of skilled personnel, both in terms of number and expertise. This limits forecasting and warning capability. The second one, impact-based forecasting capacity remains inadequate. There is a need for more training, technical resource, and access to exposure and impact data for different hazards and improve forecasting accuracy and effectiveness. The Common Alert Protocol now, we have supporting from CMA, Chinese Meteorological Administration. We will have soon the Laos early warning release system. Yesterday night, I came back from Beijing. I came back from the CMA for study tour. I visit and exchange about the early warning system in China. I will get the Common Alert Protocol, that's platform, platform developed by the CMA. I think the CMA is the member of the WMO, and this platform is developed by the guidance of the WMO. I think this very important. I propose two languages, Lao language first, English, and maybe Chinese. Yeah, they can develop any language for the Lao PDA. And lastly, we have the lack of feedback from the user. Especially, we still need the feedback mechanism. Okay. How we can get the feedback from the end user. This is important. Okay. So we think that our information is very good, but we don't know our feedback from the user good or not.
So thank you very much, Mr. Wiengchai. I think,
thank you for time limited.
Yeah, for your sharing experience.
I like to in the meeting in person that I can have the time more discussion.
Of course.
Thank you very much for your very good question.
Of course. Yeah, Pete, have a big hand to him. Yeah, he tried a lot to share experience in Laos, including strengthening policy, strengthening cooperation with the partner, etc., and try to bring the warning system at the community level. But it's very clearly to him too, he still need feedback from the community. That is also important to improve the early warning system. Mr. Alok, yes, he has to leave, but yeah.
If anybody has anything specific for me, I can just take care. I'll have the next session.
Okay. Please have a big hand to Mr. Alok too, for sharing the panels. So next, again, I would like to stay with Lao, but can Madam Chari, answer in short in terms of how does the early warning for our roadmap of Lao PDR ensure that vulnerable groups, including women, persons with the disability, and ethnic minority group, receive multi-hazard early warning message to minimize the harms? If you can bring the JETSI perspective in early warning, it's going to be great. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure that I can be heard.
Yes.
Okay, great. So of course, a lot has already been covered on Lao PDR by Avi as well as the DG. But it's really a pleasure to talk about the early warning for all roadmap. I would begin by saying that the development of the roadmap itself has been a very, very inclusive process. And this is very much a part of, I think, the government of Laos thinking along how they work on their national development plan, on the DRR strategy that the official mentioned as well. So while so under the Secretary General's initiative, when Laos was identified as a pilot country, and DMH was identified as the sort of the convening agency, I have to say that there's such an excellent job that DMH through DMH's leadership to ensure that there was a real collaboration and a multi-stakeholder engagement right from the very beginning. So from the stakeholder workshops to the gap analysis, to the national consultations, involving the Lao Women's Union, the Lao Youth Union. So really bringing in the voices of that would represent gender and youth, but most importantly, also engaging with the organizations for persons with disabilities. And I think that has been the most important part of the process is the OPD engagement, and a very conscious engagement. We really sort of follow the notion of not that nothing about the persons with disabilities without engaging them. So I think that's been a very critical part of the early warning for all roadmap development process. Very happy to say that the roadmap was endorsed very recently. The Minister of Monre signed off on it just earlier this month on the 5th of August, and there is a plan now to do a dissemination workshop. In terms of how and some of the specific activities in which vulnerable groups that you've mentioned, especially women, youth, persons with disabilities, minority groups, but also others such as, there's a very large migrant population as well in Laos, how to engage all of them. I think the interventions across the 4 pillars that have been identified in the roadmap sort of span different components. So one is, I think, this big piece of looking at data. And Avi mentioned this already. UN Habitat is already working on risk exposure, identifying what are the population groups that are exposed to the highest risks. And then also looking at ensuring that the disaster loss and damage data that is collected is also sex disability disaggregated. There was also a recent perception survey that was done, really targeting views of the youth and of some of the other groups that we don't usually hear from. And that's useful more in terms from the user perspective on the messages, on the needs, on also the awareness of early warning as a whole. So that's one piece more around the data. The other is on some of the targeted solutions. So one is around multiple languages, because Laos is a very, very ethnically diverse country. Lao is widely spoken, but by no means is the only language. So really ensuring that the messages reach those that are in the most remote areas that tend to be some of the smaller ethnic groups as well. That's reflected in the roadmap. Also technology, how do we use technology that can really reach persons with disabilities? So especially looking at incorporating voice technology.
Ms. Sherry, is because of the time is running out, can you have a conclusion message?
Sure.
Because I think I can give
I
time
think you
for...
get the gist. I think you get the gist of what we're doing here. And I think finally is on the feedback, and that also Mr. Viangsai had mentioned on collecting from the clients, from the users, what is the feedback to improve the messages. I just wanted to say one thing that I think, or one of the other things that is mentioned as part of the roadmap design is the importance of doing drills. And the drills would involve students, it can involve persons with disabilities. And I have previous experience of in my previous job working on tsunami preparedness and working with schools, and school drills are such an important way, or any sort of drill is so important to really check on whether your messages are reaching. So I think that itself fulfills a number of purposes, getting your feedback as well as doing awareness and preparedness at the same time.
Okay.
So these are some of the initiatives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Please have a big hand to her. So now there are about 15 minutes. I think I will give opportunity for the participant here to give a question to the panel for response. For Mr. Pranto, so I have a question to you, but maybe wait for the question from the floor too. Like, what is the key role of the youth to fill the gap in early warning? I will give you a floor to say some keyword, but now the floor is open. Any question from the floor? Okay, please, Yumiko, can you give the mic? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Anton Urfels from the International Rice Research Institute, IRI, from the Philippines. Thanks for the very nice session and overview. So, me coming from the agricultural sector, I would like to ask to the panel, how do you work together between the meteorological and hydrology departments and the agricultural sector, where a lot of the kind of response and adaptation and resilience needs to happen and take place? So, I'd be curious to hear from your experience about that linkage and connection. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any more question? Maybe, okay, two. And then we can ask the panel to respond. Over there.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Alexander from Antea Group. There was mention of the complexity in the governance and the coordination between all the different kind of activities that are going on. And I think also from Lau we heard the multitude of different activities and actions that are being taken. What are your thoughts on how to coordinate this better, that all the organizations work towards the same goal and that there's no multiple duplication of effort?
Okay, thank you. So first question is about linkage early warning with agriculture. So any of you want? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So this is very important to communication with the agricultural sector is not only important for the early warning, but also for the overall flood and water management. So, but maybe personally, I think the importance is to communicate with communities because usually the agricultural sector is very tightly linked to the communities or villages. So we should make a communication with the communities to make early warnings work well, and it results, as a result, to involving more agricultural sector to with high awareness and more preparedness. And also for the contribution to the flood risk reduction itself, because there is a lot of rice paddies which can be store the flood water in the case of a flood in the agriculture sector. So the Japanese government is now moving on to very importance on communicating the agriculture sector as well as the local communities. That's from Japan. Thank you.
Okay, good. So maybe Lance can also share experience on how to coordinate among different activity on set up the early warning for all, or the system, please. And then I throw back to Lau again if there is any specific answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kun Danapon. I'm actually going to quickly try and answer both from ADB's perspective, but coming to the coordination. So ADB takes coordination role very seriously, activities seriously. Of course, we respond to the governments of the countries that we work in, and we always make sure that we're going through the relevant line ministries and departments, and they have a key coordination role as well. But while we're preparing any investments or programs, We make sure that we always consult with all active development partners working within the country and also within the region, depending on the nature of the activity, to make sure that we are coordinating well, communicating well, we're avoiding duplicating, and hopefully synergizing on some of those activities that we're involved in. We recognise that we need all sources and support from all areas, and there is a paucity of financing, so we need to make sure that we are leveraging everyone's resources when we're preparing and implementing a program. Just coming back to the other question from our ERI friend, we talk about early warning systems and its impacts on communities, which is, of course, all very good. One of the things that I'm interested in is the fact that floods are becoming more and more the main resource in the long term, particularly in monsoonal countries. That means that we have to utilise the flood waters while they're running off our land. That actually requires the forecasting, the early warning system. It means it needs to be integrated with the infrastructure itself. We need to make sure that the infrastructure is able to quickly open its gates or capture that water, divert that water into storages, be it surface storage or groundwater storage. We need to make sure that the farmers are aware, or cities are aware, that there might be a flood coming or there might be droughts coming, so that they can organise themselves well. We know, working in the region, that a lot of the infrastructure is not capable of that type of flexibility, and it's not capable of being able to capture the floods itself. So a lot of the water runs off into the oceans, which could be a good thing, but if we're thinking about the fact that droughts are going to become more often, dry periods or non-monsoon, non-wet seasons are going to become longer, and rainfall more sporadic, then we really should be thinking about how do we capture and store that water better. So,
thank you, Lance. And Ben, are you there? If you have any experience to share from WMO on the linking early warning with agriculture and also the coordination issue, among different activity in the pathway of early warning.
Well, thank you very much. And I too am going to try and combine the two questions because I think they're very closely related. I mean, the connection between our members, the National Meteorological and Hydrological Service and the agricultural community is very close, particularly as you get closer to the ground. And so in individual countries, and particularly agrarian countries, this link is very strong and has been there for, 100+ years. So it's also about the Met services and the hydrological services understanding their community and their needs and being able to respond to them. So having an ongoing dialogue to understand what their thresholds are, to share information on climate projections, to help both in the long term and the short term. And I think coordination really cuts across all sectors, and it's very, very important that everybody understands what each of the agencies are doing at the national level, and that they work in a complementary way. So working in a system. So we link it to the early warnings for all concept. We talk about the pillars, and the example from Lao was really quite excellent about involving a number of different stakeholder groups to get a very broad picture of what's needed and what the individual communities and also the stakeholders need in terms of information to inform their decision. And I just want to go back to a final point, the very good point made by Avi. It's not just about getting those early warnings out, it's about taking action and taking the right action in the right circumstances and also getting that feedback loop. So this user-based and people-centric approach is really important to understand how the information is being used, whether it's effective, and if it's not effective, how does it get improved in a very much improvement, continuous cycle. So these are the concepts sort of wrapped together, and they're very good examples actually of the meteorological and hydrological services working very closely with the agricultural community. The Mekong Basin is a very good example of this, which has long periods of lack of water and then vast, onset of monsoon rains and so on. And I think this point made by ADB is a very good one. How do we harness that? And so this is going to take time and take technology and investment to make sure that we can adapt to the ever-changing climate change situation and not just the threats from climate change, but also some of the opportunities. So I'll stop on that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben, for your valuable sharing experience. And I think from Lao speaker, it's already mentioned that they try to build the app, right, called Raksa, to link the early warning with the agriculture group. That's also a good example. So maybe before I'm wrapping the section, I give opportunity to Pranto, representative from youth group, to see a new idea from the next generation, about how do they think about early warning system. Pranto, yeah, floor is yours now. 2 or 3 minutes maximum, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And hello, Stockholm. So I am Pranto. I'm from the World Youth Parliament for Water and Eco Prescription Bangladesh, and I am currently based in Bangladesh. So before speaking, I want to just give a term like I believe in from when you feel like vulnerable, you will go for the resilience, which my previous panelist also mentioned about the call to action actually. So like before, what can youth do in this perspective for the early action? Just go backward, and I would like to give you a case of Bangladesh actually. Bangladesh is a South Asian country, and this country has around 907 rivers. So there are so many water and all the things. But do you know that there is currently a flash flood happening in Bangladesh right now? And in the southern part of the Bangladesh, and around 4 million people are being affected, and 75,000 people are being temporarily accommodated, as per the report in 23rd August. So just before the series. So there's the fact actually, like why early warning system is important. So this flash flood is the reason for the heavy rainfall also, and also from the upperland countries and the lowerland countries, border section and all the things. So for the youth, and when I visited in May for the 10th World Water Forum, we World Youth Parliament for Water also speak for the early action actually. So as an anthropologist, basically I always focus on the cultural things. Like before the call to action, we have to feel like how we can go for the vulnerability to the resilience. And in the cultural things for the early warning system, so youth should be included in designing and implementing the early warning system decision and the implementation based on the culture. Different countries has the different cultural perspective. So we should focus on that, like how culturally we can connect this. And also there are some traditional practices or traditional knowledges to cover up the flood and all the things. Like in example, in Bangladesh, when I did a research in the ocean, in the Bay of Bengal, so I found out like how traditional knowledge they can know about that when the rain will come and when the disaster is coming. Before the warning from the meteorological organization and all that things. So these are the traditional knowledges. They know about their experience. So we should prioritize this experience, and you should include this and promote this. And also the indigenous knowledge is very much important there. So before including the youth, we also think about the risk knowledge for the early warning system, like the climate vulnerability assessment should be included here. And also we should know the gaps of the risk knowledge. But do you know there is statistics in Bangladesh, like in 2015 to 2020, only 28.19% know about the early warning before the disaster. So there's the focus point. Around 2% people didn't even know about that the disaster is coming. So youth should be included in. I believe that as an youth representative here, I believe that you should be focused on the 5 specific things. First of all, the science and technology. Youth are advanced right now. Youth are advancing the science and technology also, and there are various forms of youth. They are experts in various fields. So they should advance the forecasting tools and the data analytics, and they should be included here.
Pato, sorry to interrupt you. I just have last minute to stop here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I think,
So second is the institutional architecture. Third one is capacity. I have to make it short actually. And fourth one is the multi-structure and also the finance. So youth should be included here. And also youth should reduce the loss and poverty in their community, basically from the local knowledge. When we will empower the local community for our activities, by our activities about the early warning system and all the things, then their community can change it. Then the knowledge can be produced.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's
Thank
all.
you, Prado.
Thank you so much.
Sorry to cut it here, but I think people here hear you very well to include the culture, include the knowledge, local knowledge, in the design of early warning system. So please share me the big hand to our panel to share their experience and knowledge. And yeah, I have just a key message that 50% of people still behind the early warning system, and prediction, etc. And of course, improved coordination is one of way to filling the gap. Join hand together, and both in investment in infrastructure and local infrastructure, and also very important, to bridge between gray and green, again, solution. And the last part, human-centric, and also, consider the feedback from the local people, and also very important to improve effectively and efficiently of the early warning, and make sure that the information that we generate is usefulness to the end of output. So yeah, I would like to thank all here, and also thank you for Asia Pacific Forum for host this section with other partners. So thank you very much. Thank you.